In this video tutorial, we will learn how to use the Bezier Pen Tool to create curved shapes in Illustrator. I'm going to start off by clicking File, New, and choosing an A4 landscape page. The Bezier Pen Tool is one of the first drawing tools that we have available in the Illustrator toolbox. It also has options that can be accessed by holding down over the pen tool. So we've got the pen tool itself, the ability to add and delete anchor points, or to convert existing anchor points. I'm going to start with the pen tool. If I click on the screen, it sets an anchor point, a little blue square, and if I click elsewhere, it will then join those with a line. So if I click at the north, south, east and west corners, back to the top, it creates a kind of diamond shape. Now we said this was about using curved shapes, and this is made from straight lines. So how do we get the curves? The curves are achieved by using a click and drag. So instead of clicking, if I click and hold the mouse button in, drag to the side, you can see that the anchor point has got a couple of direction handles appearing. This is a little blue balls attached to the anchor point. When I now click to the next point, I get a curved line joining to the original anchor point. And depending on which direction I pull in and how hard I pull, these direction handles will change the shape of the curve. So if I pull to the side, we get a kind of S shape there. If I pull the other direction, it'll go out to the right before coming back in. If I go straight up and down the screen, I get a nice round shape. If I go the other direction, it goes off to the bottom of the screen before returning to my new anchor point. I'm going to turn this round and just have it nice round curve. I'm going to click roughly below my original start point here now. Again, if I pull it straight up and down, it makes a curve. If I pull it to the side, I can go shooting past and then back, or in the correct direction, just make a nice gentle curve. Out to the side, same kind of thing, I'm going straight up and down here, and then back to the start makes a closed shape. That's very important in Illustrator to have a fill colour, and that then makes me a circular-ish shape. The strength of the direction handles is quite important here. If I click and drag very wide and then click over here, you'll see that it's got a very strong curve to it. And again, if I pull very tall, I'm making a very steep attack on the curve. If I click and drag just a small amount, it should be much less. We won't see that until I get to a new anchor point past that, because it's influenced by the previous anchor point. But you can see there, it's a very shallow curve. And then coming back here, again, just pull it out to a very shallow curve. So it's important to think about how far you're pulling the anchor points out, or sorry, the direction handles out from the anchor points. That will determine how curved your shape is. So now that we've got an idea what these anchor points can do, what could we do with them? Well, I'm going to just get rid of all these shapes here and have a look at an example. If I take my pen tool and I click, I've got a back point here, I'm going to go up, down a bit, back up again, down to the middle, and then mirror that below. Just very approximately, it doesn't have to be exact. Remember always to click back to your starting point to make a complete closed shape. So that's, I guess, a bow tie kind of shape there, perhaps. What if I repeated it using click and drag instead? So at the back of the shape, I'm going to click and I'm going to drag straight up and down, not too far. Then I'm going to go to the top part and drag out to the side. And again, when I come down, I'm going to drag out to the side, out to the side, and then for the front part, I'm going to drag up and down. Go to the bottom, drag out to the side, up a little bit, out to the side, down a little bit, out to the side, and then back to the start, and just give it a little bit of a drag up and down to give it a bit of symmetry. What have we made? Well, if I took a couple of ellipses, if I put an ellipse here, and then maybe alt drag that one to make an exact copy of it. I don't think I did alt drag that there. Let's try that again. Then what we've got, fill this in with black, and we have created a superhero's domino mask. We could perhaps have, if we didn't have these circles on, we could argue maybe it looks a little bit like a guitar body, and we could have turned it into a guitar or something like that. The point is that we have got a nice smooth curved shape instead of jagged corners. And we only had a few click points. We can see those click points with the white pointer tool. If I click on to this shape here, each anchor point is shown. So there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 anchor points to make a nice smooth flowing shape. So I'm just going to highlight and delete these shapes, and we will go for a more useful setup. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my pen tool, and I'm going to create a kind of inverted trumpet shape. So I'm going to start at the top, I'm going to come out to the side and drag that out a little bit so it gives it a nice smooth slope. And then I'm going to click down below and drag out to the side. I'm going to come over to the side here and drag roughly there. And then I'm going to join to the top and pull that up the way so that it completes a roughly symmetrical shape, a bit like a witch's hat or kind of trumpet. Okay, so why have I gone for this shape here? Well, what I'm going to try and do with this is to turn it into a pine tree, or for certain times of the year, a Christmas tree. So I'm going to take this shape here, and I'm going to go to Object, Transform, and Transform Each. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it maybe about 125% bigger. So that's X and Y, horizontal and vertical, both 125% bigger. It's always a good idea to preview what's happening. So yes, it definitely got a bit bigger there. But the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to move it down vertically. So I'm going to pull this. That's not so bad. It is slightly off center, so actually I'm going to pull it back a little bit horizontally as well so that it's roughly centered there. Okay, maybe not quite as much. Now what I'm going to do, instead of just saying OK here, I'm going to copy that, and we get a shape like that. If I go to Object, Transform, and Transform again, which I can get from Control D, then I'll get that. A couple of Control Ds, and what I have hopefully made then is a kind of Christmas tree. So if I highlight all of those, I'm going to go to Window, Pathfinder, and join them all into a single shape. I can then maybe scale this down a little bit, give it a nice dark evergreen color fill, and of course I would want to go here and choose the star tool, come to the top of the tree, start to drag a star out. It should draw from the center. If I press the Shift key, it will set up on its base, and if I fill that with yellow, then I'm getting myself a bit of a Christmas tree. Last thing obviously to do would be to take the rectangle tool, just stick a little bit of a stalk on here, fill it with brown, and then if I was to right click on that with the selection tool, arrange, center back, and then we have a slightly leaning Christmas tree. Okay, so sticking with the Christmas theme, let's have a look at other ways that we can make curved shapes. So I'm going to do this fairly quickly. I'm going to start off with my pen tool. I am going to start off and I'm going to come out to the side here, and I'm going to make something that's quite fat and a little bit jagged, not too much, and then back to a central point here below this top point, and then roughly mirror that shape on the other side. It doesn't have to be very exact. In fact, it's ideal if it's not very exact. And I do want to join back to that point there to make a closed shape. It's always important in Illustrator to have closed shapes so that you can fill them properly with colour. Okay, now that I've got that done, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to fill it with a very pale green to start with. What I'm going to do is go to the Scale tool, and if I hold the Scale tool in, I've got something called the Reshape tool. And what the Reshape tool is going to allow me to do is to go near these straight lines, and then hopefully I can just put a little bit of a bend on them. And what I'm trying to make here is a shape that has very jagged corners but rounded joining points between those corners. And what I'm hopefully going to achieve with that is something that looks a bit like a holly leaf. So just make sure you're directly on the line when you try to reshape that particular straight section. So there is my holly leaf. It's a little bit on the weedy side. It's a little bit thin. So I'm just going to select it and fatten it out a bit like that. It's not looking much like a holly leaf at the moment. So one of the things I can then do is I'm going to come here and give it a gradient. So I'm going to give it a linear gradient. If you've got stroke showing here, you need to go into the gradient tab and choose this. And that'll give it a white to black gradient. But what we can then do is we can double click to add an extra colour. And the colour I'm going to put in the middle is very dark green. And then I'm going to go beside that, very close either side. And I'm going to make that a light green. So I'll do it on that side, and then again on the other one. And a light green. And then instead of a black at the end here, I'm going to go back to that limeish green that we had. And then maybe instead of the white, same kind of thing, limeish green there. So it's not perfect, but hopefully we've got something that looks a little bit like a holly leaf. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Object, Transform and Rotate. I'm going to make it 120 degrees, and instead of saying OK, I'm going to copy that. Let's just see how that's looking. Yeah, that's not bad. So I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to go to Object, Transform, and Transform again. So the exact same thing that I did before. And then I'm just going to arrange these 3 holly leaves into a little cluster like that. Now to finish off the scene, I'm going to use an Ellipse Tool. I'm going to use the Shift key to make sure I get a nice perfect circle. I'm going to change the gradient on this to a purple radial, and I'm then going to change the purple to be red, so a red berry. And I can drag this white point much further along here. What I'm going to have to do to place this though is go to the Gradient tool. So the Gradient tool can be found over here in the toolbox, and I'm just going to take this middle point here and move it out into the top corner of the berry. And then finally, Alt drag a few berries into the cluster, and that is our scene. Maybe just a little bit more spacing there. And there we have a holly berry bush.